The story of commercial aviation begins not with the thunder of jet engines or the luxury of modern airliners, but with fragile machines made of wood, fabric, and hope. In the early 1920s, the world had just emerged from the devastation of the First World War. Airplanes had proven themselves as machines of war, but very few believed they could become machines of peace, let alone a way to connect entire continents. Yet, in small hangars and dusty airfields, young men and women dreamed of turning aviation into something bigger. They wanted to carry not only mail or cargo, but ordinary people, families, businessmen, adventurers, who had only ever traveled long distances by train or ship. In those early years, stepping into an aircraft was not unlike gambling with fate. The aircraft were slow, noisy, and vulnerable to weather. Turbulence could feel like a violent storm at sea, and there were no pressurized cabins, no comfortable seats, and no entertainment. Passengers wore heavy coats, scarves, even goggles, as they sat in open cockpits or cramped cabins, shivering against the cold. Yet there was something magical about the idea of flying above the ground, looking down on rivers, forests, and mountains, and arriving somewhere in hours instead of days. The risks were high, but so was the excitement. Airlines began to appear, often as offshoots of mail carriers. In the United States, the Airmail Act of 1925 allowed private companies to carry mail for the government, and soon, these companies realized that carrying passengers could make them even more money. In Europe, the vision was even grander. Countries like Germany, France, and the United Kingdom competed fiercely to dominate the skies. Imperial Airways in Britain promised to connect the far corners of the empire. Lufthansa in Germany grew rapidly, introducing larger and more advanced aircraft. And across the Atlantic, Pan American Airways would become a symbol of global ambition, flying across oceans and planting its flag in distant lands. But the reality of early flying was harsh. Accidents were common. Engines failed without warning, wings buckled under stress, pilots lost their way in storms with no radar or modern instruments to guide them. Each flight was a test of endurance for both machine and crew. Passengers boarded not with the quiet confidence of today, but with prayers whispered under their breath. When flights landed safely, there was applause, not because of the comfort, but because survival was never guaranteed. Still, progress marched forward. By the 1930s, aircraft had grown larger and more sophisticated. The Ford trimotor in the United States, with its corrugated metal skin, became a symbol of reliability. The Douglas DC-3 soon followed, revolutionizing air travel. With its twin engines, sleek design, and increased range, the DC-3 could carry more passengers, faster and farther, while being far safer than anything before it. Historians often call it the airplane that made commercial aviation truly practical. Suddenly, flying wasn't just for the rich or the reckless. It was for the middle class, the everyday traveler. Yet the glamour of this new age of aviation was often interrupted by tragedy. Weather remained the greatest enemy. Without modern radar, a sudden storm could tear apart an aircraft or send it tumbling into mountains hidden by clouds. Pilots relied on maps, compasses, and gut instinct. Air traffic control was rudimentary at best. When planes vanished, searches often dragged on for days with little hope of survivors. Newspapers covered these accidents in detail, and while fear grew, so did fascination. The world was beginning to accept that aviation was not only the future of travel, but also a theater of human drama, courage, and loss. By the late 1930s, airlines were experimenting with luxury. Some flights offered dining rooms, complete with silverware and multi-course meals. Flight attendants, known then as stewardesses, wore elegant uniform. When the Second World War finally ended in 1945, the world stood on the threshold of a new era. Nations were rebuilding, economies were shifting, and aviation had become more advanced than anyone could have imagined before the war. Huge factories that had once produced bombers and fighters now turned their resources to passenger aircraft. Pilots who had flown in combat now wore crisp uniforms and guided civilian passengers across borders and oceans. The age of modern commercial aviation was about to begin. The Douglas DC-4 and later the DC-6 brought passengers further and faster than ever before. Airlines expanded rapidly, eager to connect cities that had once been separated by days of rail travel. And then came the aircraft that changed everything. The Lockheed Constellation, with its graceful dolphin-like fuselage and triple-tail design. It was fast, elegant, and luxurious, offering sleeping berths, full-course meals, and a smooth ride. Celebrities, businessmen, and government officials embraced this new world of air travel. Flying was no longer just functional, it was glamorous. In the 1950s, the true revolution arrived. Jet engines, once used only in military fighters, were now adapted for passenger aircraft. The de Havilland Comet became the world's first commercial jetliner, stunning the world with its speed and quiet engines. But in its early years, tragedy struck. Several comets broke apart mid-air due to metal fatigue, an engineering flaw not yet understood. These disasters shocked the public and nearly destroyed confidence in jet travel. But from those losses, engineers learned. They redesigned, reinforced, and improved. Aviation safety took a leap forward. Then came the Boeing 707, which many call the airplane that truly opened the jet age. With its sleek, swept wings and powerful engines, it could cross the Atlantic in hours instead of days. Suddenly, the old felt smaller. What once required a long voyage by ship could now be done in less than a day. Airlines advertised international travel as a lifestyle of sophistication. Stewardesses wore stylish uniforms, passengers sipped cocktails in mid-air, and businessmen could travel from New York to London and return within a week. The world was shrinking, and commercial aviation was the reason. The 1960s and 70s are often remembered as the golden age of flying. Passengers dressed in suits and gowns. Cabins were spacious, meals were served on real china, and legroom was generous. Flying was expensive, but it was also something extraordinary, a privilege that carried prestige. Airliners like the Boeing 747, the Queen of the Skies, embodied the dream. The 747 was massive, carrying hundreds of passengers with 2 decks and long-haul capabilities that connected continents like never before. For many, stepping onto a 747 felt like stepping into the future. But the golden age was also marked by tragedy. Air travel was safer than ever, but accidents still occurred, often in horrifying scale. In 1977, 2 Boeing 747s collided on the runway in Tenerife, Spain, killing more than 580 people, the deadliest accident in aviation history. Hijackings also became a dark chapter in aviation. In the politically turbulent decades of the 60s and 70s, aircraft were often seized by armed men demanding ransoms or political concessions. For the first time, flying was not only glamorous, it was dangerous in new, unpredictable ways. Despite these setbacks, aviation grew unstoppable. Technology advanced, radar improved, flight data recorders were introduced, and international safety standards became stricter. The public's trust in aviation endured. After all, the promise of reaching distant lands in mere hours was too powerful to ignore. By the late 1970s, air travel was no longer just for the elite. Deregulation in the United States opened the skies to competition, lowering ticket prices and making flights accessible to middle-class families. Airlines multiplied, routes expanded, and the dream, The 1980s marked a turning point in the story of commercial aviation. By now, the glamour of the early jet age was fading. Flying was no longer reserved for the wealthy elite, but had become a form of transportation for the masses. Airports grew busier, airlines multiplied, and the competition for passengers intensified. With deregulation in the United States, ticket prices dropped, but this also meant tighter budgets for airlines. The world of flying began to change. Service became less about luxury and more about efficiency. The Boeing 757 and 767 entered service, bringing improved fuel efficiency and reliability. Airbus introduced its groundbreaking A320 in the late 1980s, the first commercial airliner with a full digital fly-by-wire control system. This aircraft would go on to shape the future of aviation. It showed that technology could not only make flying safer, but also reduce costs and improve performance. The rivalry between Boeing and Airbus grew fiercer, with each company pushing boundaries in design, speed, and efficiency. Yet the 1980s and 1990s were also marked by tragedies that left deep scars on aviation history. In 1985, Japan Airlines Flight 123 suffered a catastrophic failure of its rear pressure bulkhead, leading to the deadliest single aircraft accident in history, with 520 lives lost. That same year, Delta Flight 191 crashed in Dallas due to a powerful microburst, teaching meteorologists and pilots the importance of understanding severe weather phenomena. These disasters, while devastating, pushed safety standards higher than ever before. Terrorism also struck aviation. In December 1988, Pan Am Flight 103 was destroyed by a bomb over Lockerbie, Scotland, killing 270 people. This horrifying act reshaped airport security forever. Governments and airlines began implementing stricter security screenings, baggage checks, and intelligence cooperation to prevent similar attacks. Passengers would never look at air travel the same way again. As the 1990s dawned, aviation technology surged forward. The Boeing 777 took to the skies, the world's first airliner designed entirely on computer systems. With its long range and twin-engine efficiency, it opened new possibilities for non-stop international travel. At the same time, the Airbus A330 and A340 pushed European innovation into the spotlight. Passengers could now fly further, faster, and with more reliability than ever. Then came September 11, 2001. On that morning, the world watched in horror as hijacked airliners were used as weapons in the deadliest terrorist attack in history. The sight of two aircraft striking the World Trade Center forever changed aviation. The skies shut down across America, and air travel would never return to the way it was before. Security became the top priority. Cockpit doors were reinforced, screening procedures became stricter, and intelligence agencies increased cooperation worldwide. For passengers, the freedom and glamour of flying had vanished, replaced by vigilance and caution. Yet even in this era of fear, aviation did not stop. By the mid-2000s, air travel was booming again. Low-cost carriers like Ryanair, EasyJet, and Southwest Airlines reshaped the industry. Flying was no longer about luxury, it was about accessibility. Millions of people who had never flown before were suddenly able to afford tickets. Air travel became an everyday reality for students, families, and workers. Technology also advanced dramatically. The Airbus A380, the largest passenger aircraft in history, entered service in 2007. With 2 full decks, it could carry over 500 passengers in comfort. It symbolized the ambition of global aviation. Boeing responded with the 787 Dreamliner, a lightweight composite airliner designed for efficiency and long-range flights. It offered quieter cabins, better air quality, and lower fuel consumption. These aircraft represented the future, where innovation and sustainability went hand in hand. Still, tragedies continue to remind the world of aviation's risks. In 2009, Air France Flight 447 disappeared over the Atlantic Ocean, shocking the world and sparking years of investigation into pilot training and automation. In 2014, Malaysia Airlines suffered 2 devastating incidents: MH370, which vanished without a trace, and MH17, shot down over Ukraine. These losses were felt globally, reminding everyone that despite progress, aviation was still vulnerable to both mystery and violence. In the 2020s, aviation faced a new and unexpected crisis: the COVID-19 pandemic. Airports fell silent, fleets were grounded, and airlines faced financial collapse. International borders closed, and air travel nearly came to a halt. For a time, the industry that had connected the world for decades was forced into silence. But slowly, with resilience, airlines returned to the skies. New health measures were introduced, technology adapted, and once again, the human need to travel overcame the barriers. Today, aviation stands on the edge of yet another transformation. Electric aircraft, sustainable fuels, and artificial intelligence promise a future where flying is cleaner, safer, and more efficient. Drones and autonomous technology are shaping new possibilities. The dream that began with the Wright brothers has never stopped evolving. The story of commercial aviation is a story of triumph and tragedy, innovation and challenge, hope and resilience. From the glamour of the golden age to the efficiency of modern low-cost carriers, from the fear of hijackings to the dream of supersonic travel returning one day, the skies have witnessed it all. And through it all, aviation has remained what it was always meant to be: humanity's bridge across the world, a symbol of progress and a testament to our unending desire to reach beyond the horizon.